$1 million. So how hard could it be to become a billionaire? Let's say you are an average Indian earning $10,000 per year. It would take 100 years just to earn $1 million. But that does not include rent, food, cost of living, and if you diligently and consistently save 10% of your earnings, it would take 1,000 years just to save your way to $1 million. The average doctor, 271 years. The average engineer, 454 years. See, for the rich, wealth is measured in time. If you lost your job tomorrow, how many days, months, or years could you survive on your savings? That is the definition of wealth. So how long could you survive? This book will give you the financial intelligence you probably missed out on growing up. The secret financial intelligence that wealthy families pass on from generation to generation. The education system and your parents forgot to teach you. You not getting this information is why many people remain forever stuck in rat race. By the end of this video, you will know 95% of everything this book has to offer. You will have the bird's eye view of all the most important concepts and quotes that will change your perception of wealth and guide you on your journey to financial freedom. Rich Dad, Poor Dad. The story of two fathers. One has a wall full of degrees and diplomas, one high school dropout. One after that will leave next to nothing behind except death. The other will have died one of the richest men in Hawaii and will pass on his empire to his children. Rich Dad guide two boys on the journey to best use their minds and finite time to create wealth from investment and businesses. These stories show the difference between I can't afford that to how can I afford that. His poor dad would say things like, I will never be rich, and his prophecies become true. His rich dad, however, even after going bankrupt and having $0, would say, I am a rich man. That's the difference between being poor and being broke. Broke is temporary, poor is eternal. Lesson 1. The rich don't work for money. The poor and middle class work for money. The rich have money work for them. When Robert Kiyosaki, the author of this book, was 9 years old, his best friend Mike and he asked Rich Dad, Mike's father, how to make money. Before, they were both working within Rich Dad's companies. The only problem Robert had was his salary. 10 cents a week, a poverty wage. He seriously thought about quitting every week that passed by. Who was this guy to be exploiting us for 10 cents a week? It was at this moment in the time that Rich Dad gave them their first lesson on topic of money. Life pushes all of us around. Some people give up, few learn the lesson and move on. They welcome life pushing them around. Most people leave their job because they aren't receiving enough money. But the wealthy sees it an opportunity to learn. One of life's biggest traps. They work very hard for little money, clinging to the illusion of job security, 3 weeks vacation and a skimpy pension. Fear and greed. People's life on forever controlled by two emotions, fear and greed. Here's how the pattern goes. Your fear of not having money motivates you to work harder. Then the paychecks begin and your desire and greed for new car, new product, new shoes and clothes begins. You want more things, so you work harder for that promotion. Then the pattern is set and you are stuck in it. You get up, you go to work, you come home and pay your bills. Your increased earning leads to increased spending. And this is the rat race. To break the boys out of 9 to 5 mentalities driven by fear and greed, eventually Rich Dad cut down the both boys' wages to 0. Robert didn't dare to tell his poor dad that he was working for nothing. They began working for the knowledge and Rich Dad forced them to think of ways to start generating their own income. One day, 2 older comics were left lying around one of the Rich Dad's stores. and this was the inspiration for them to open their first business. They recovered the outdated comics, opened the library in the basement. Classmates paid 10 cents for entry. They paid the sister a wage of $1 a week. Before they knew it, they were earning $9.50 a week without even needing to work. This was the beginning of their journey of not working to earn money, but making money work for them. Key lesson: getting a job is a really short term solution. Getting enough to pay expenses to the long term challenge of building your net worth. The more you get paid, the higher your expenses become. This is human nature, and it is driven by fear and desire. If you get stuck in this cycle, you are forced to work for someone else the rest of your life. Lesson 2: Why teach financial literacy? It's not how much money you make, it's how much money you keep. If you are looking to school to make you rich, then you are looking in the wrong place. Education system's primary objective is to train you on how to become a good employee, but it does a poor job of making you a good employer. Things like managing your own personal finance and building wealth aren't taught to you by the education system in its current state. You can only rely on yourself to use this knowledge and acquire assets that allow you to generate an income. The first pillar of financial literacy and escaping the rat race is understanding the difference between asset and liability. An asset puts money in my pocket. Liability takes money out of my pocket. Let's quickly look at the income statement. Your income statement is money going into your pocket. Expenses is money going out of your pocket. Things like rent, food, electricity and clothes goes here. An asset is something that allows its owner to generate an income. On the other hand, a liability generates expenditure. This is the cash flow of an asset. This is the cash flow of liability. Rich people acquire assets, and the poor and middle class acquire liabilities that they think are assets. Cash flow patterns. Cash flow tells the story of how someone handles money. This is the cash flow of poor person. They have a job, they get a salary, they use all their salary to expenses, and they usually live from paycheck to paycheck. This is the cash flow of middle class. They have jobs, they get a salary, but most of their salary is tied up in liabilities and expenses. Home loan, car debt, credit card debt, mortgage repayments, and taxes. They think that their home is an asset, but they woke up one day with a liability column full of mortgages debt and credit card debt. This is the cash flow of rich person. The rich are always thinking of ways to grow the asset columns. Their main source of income is from assets that they have acquired over time. Your home is not an asset. By focusing on home, you are building a liability rather than asset. When it comes to house, most people work all their lives paying for a home they might never own, incurring 30 years loan that they are tied to. You need to pay property tax, and the rate of these taxes are completely out of your control. You need to pay other home expenses, and the value of your home over time does not always go up. And most important of all, the biggest cost of a house are all the lost opportunities. If all the money is tied up in the house and going out through the expenses column in mortgage repayments, it's not being used to grow your asset column. Furthermore, think of all the other investment experience that you are missing out on when you only focus on local residential real estate. Here are some examples of real assets. An apartment which generates monthly repayments from a tenant, and the repayments allow you to repay the loan repayments on that property. A business that does not require you to be present within it. For poor dad, home was an asset. For rich dad, a home was an liability. This is how poor dad's income statement looks. Take note of the inflated liabilities. And this is the rich dad statement looks. Over time, he has grown his asset. Most people fall into this trap all the time because they are financially illiterate. They don't understand the relationship and difference between the balance sheet and the income statement. Why people struggle. If you follow what the masses do, this is what your life will become. You have three people that you work for. You work for the company to get salary. You are making the owner and the shareholders rich. If you have debt, then you work for the bank. Your mortgage and the credit cards make the bank rich through your interest repayments. And finally, you work for the government. The government takes a cut of your money before you have ever seen it. And harder you work, the more you pay in taxes. Take a calendar year. If you are a regular person, every dollar you earn from January 1st to March 16th goes straight to the government. That's 1.5 months of every year that you just gave to the government. Compounded over 40 years, that is almost 6 years you work just to pay tax bill. The rich understand this. Poor and middle class don't. The main way to get out of the rat race, fully understand the difference between asset and a liability. Focus all your efforts on obtaining assets that generate a cash flow. Keep your expenses and debt to the bare minimum. And finally, which lead us to the next lesson, mind your own business. Key lesson. Life is not about how much money you make. It is about how much money you keep and for how many generations. Lesson 3. Mind your own business. Rich focus on their asset columns, while everyone else focus on their income statement. Robert Kiyosaki's first professional job was far from glamorous. He was at photocopier salesman for Xerox. Using the wage he earned, he invested into apartment, and after just 3 years, the revenue he was generating from his investments outpaced his salary. Then time for him to leave Xerox and look after his business full time. So what are some real assets you can begin focusing your attention on? 1. Businesses that do not require your presence to operate. 2. Stocks. 3. Bonds. 4. Income generating real estate. 5. Notes or IOUs. 6. Royalty from intellectual properties like music script or patent. 7. Anything else that produce an income or appreciate in value, things like cryptocurrencies, website, YouTube channels, etc. Once a dollar goes into your asset column, never let it come out again. Feed your asset column. Robert thinks of every dollar he puts into his asset column as an employee. Each dollar in my asset column was a great employee, making more employees to buy the boss new Porsche. And the best thing about money is it can work for 24 hours a day and it can work for generations. Key lesson. Don't confuse your profession with your business. The middle class focus on their profession, and as a result, they spend their entire life building someone else's business. The rich, on the other hand, focus on building their own businesses. Your profession focuses only on the income section of your personal income statement. Your business revolves around the asset column on your balance sheet.